Okay, now for this next bit, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at different kinds of input fields, and in parallel to that we're going to talk about data integrity. So this is our employee form that enables us to enter information about an employee. Obviously we can create a new employee using this page, or we can edit an existing employee. And we have various different sort of text entry fields here. One of the ones that's quite nice is because we specified that the hire date was going to be a date when we set it up in the domain model, it's automatically created a sort of date picker for us. And so by clicking on here we get a little pop-up, and that forces us to actually enter something which is a sort of consistent date. We've got salary, commission and department number. Well, let's have a think about job, for example, and we know that people have all sorts of different jobs. The way that this table and entity is structured at the moment is that obviously these are just string fields, words, so that means that anything could be typed in here. So, you know, somebody could just come in and type apple or something. What would be more useful would be if this could actually restrict the kind of jobs that there are. We know that there are, with this setup, with this sort of data structure that we have, there are 5 different types of job: admin, sales, manager, analyst and president. So it'd be really useful if in a way we could constrain the choices for jobs so that people could only actually enter a job that was a valid job. Well, we can do that. I'm just going to cancel that so that we don't make that change permanent. Let's go back into Mendix and have a look at how we do this. So the way to do this is to add a constraint or a very fixed choice in our domain model. So I'm going to go into the domain model, and if we have a look at employee, which is here, you can see that we said that job was a string. Now I'm going to double tap on employee and I'm going to bring it up. Here we can see the entity, the employee entity. Remember, that's going to correspond to a table in the database, and each of these is going to be effectively a column. Our manager here is a string. When we set job up, we basically just said it was going to be a string. That means anybody could type any kind of value in. But let's change it. Let's change the type of job. So now if I double tap on that, what will happen here is we get the edit attribute dialog box. And obviously so far all we've really done is we've used integers, strings, dates and times. But one of the choices that we can make in this list is this thing that's called an enumeration. So I'm going to pick an enumeration. Now an enumeration is basically a list of items. Sounds complicated, but it's a list of things that you can choose from. That's what an enumeration is. And now clearly I haven't got one of those set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click new, and I'm going to create an enumeration. And what it will ask is, it will say what's going to be the name for this enumeration, what's going to be the name for this list of items. So let's call it jobs. I'm going to click on OK, and it's going to pop up a dialog box. Again, this style is sort of familiar to us, with information at the top and then places where we can enter sort of multiple values down the bottom. So I'm just going to click on new, and what I can do is I can add a caption and a name for each of the items that are going to be in my list. Now I'm going to use the same thing for the caption and for the name. So I'm going to go admin. Now you can see it's automatically done that there. Perfect. Let's add another one. Let's go sales. Let's add another one, which is manager. And let's have analyst. And let's have president. There we go. So I've said we're going to have an enumeration. It's going to be called jobs. And what jobs is, it's going to be a set of restricted values. There's a list of values that we say this value must be one of those values. It must come from that enumerated list. So I'm going to click on OK, and then click on OK, and I'm going to save it. Now we've got a little red circle there, and what that's really hinting at is it's actually telling us that there's a sort of problem down the road. And the problem that we've got that's down the road is that this employee entity is being used in other places, and of course there are going to be some problems because we haven't made those changes on those other pages. In other words, where it actually matters is in fact on our forms and list pages. So I'm going to save that, and actually it'll be quite interesting to see. Let's see what happens if I try and run this now. Hopefully we'll get an error message. There we go, we've got an error message. And our problem is that the job is now an enumeration. That's not how it's being displayed on our pages. So if I go into, now remember we're dealing with the employee here. We've got two pages that work with employees. We've got add edit employee. So let's bring that page up. Now you can see that Mendix has identified that we've got a problem with job, because when we created this list view, what it basically said was that job was going to be displayed as a string, but it's no longer a string. So in fact what we need to do, I'm just going to do this by doing a right mouse click, is I'm going to actually delete that entry field. I'm going to replace it in a minute, but that's the basic idea. We may make a change to the domain model, and as we've seen before, we have to then go through and we have to fix our input pages to make sure that everything is being displayed correctly. Now if I go over to my widgets panel over here in the toolbox, what I'm really looking for is something that will enable us to actually pick various items from an enumeration. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but I think this works very well with a kind of drop down, and there is a kind of drop down input element here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag that drop down into here and drop it in, and of course it won't be associated with anything because I've just placed it, so you can see it still says label. So let's double tap, and you can see it says attribute none. So let's click on select. Now it automatically knows to look for an enumeration, because what it's going to do is it's going to show a selection of values and only a restricted set of values. So I click on enumeration, click on select, click on OK, and you can see it's fixed it. It's added the word job and it's turned this into a drop-down list. Now there might be one other error to fix, but let's run it again. Yeah, it says there's an error in the list view window. So the other place where we're displaying employees is in the view employees page. So I've got two errors, and the first error here is the fact that I've actually got job here. And of course that job there is referring to the original text field. Now I could fix that. Let's just get this working quickly. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a right mouse click on that, and let's just delete it for the moment. That's fine. But the other one is the one that's up here. This search field was automatically created by the page. In its original form, it would have allowed us to search over any of the fields. One of the things that Mendix doesn't allow us to do is to search over an enumerated list like that. Now it can be quite difficult to find the place to see that. In fact, the key is to go into structure mode, and if you scroll, you'll see here, you can actually see search on, and of course that job has actually changed. So what I can do hopefully is if I double tap on that, I can remove job from being one of the fields that we can search on. Let's go back. The little red circle has disappeared. Let's save and let's recreate the app, see what happens. So the key here is if we make a change to the domain model, Remember, you've always got to just check the pages that are going to display information from that domain model, because they may need updating. They're not going to be automatically updated. Particularly if you created them using some sort of wizard or autocomplete process, you may have to manually change it yourself. So we're nearly there. Okay, so let's view the app. So now if I go into employee, obviously I've lost the job information, but that doesn't really matter. Let's go into here. And now, this is the important bit, I've got job and it's now a drop-down list. So I could go, March is in the admin department, or I can go to Burn. I could say Burn is a manager, or I could create a new one. And because we're using the same page, the same form for both creating a new person and for editing the values of a person, obviously we just have this one thing, this one value that's now a drop-down list, job, just like that.